I think that we live our lives kind of projecting happiness and cheer, but I think that lives are difficult to navigate. And I think that if you allow yourself to investigate a world where I think some ways we kind of naturally belong a lot of the time. I mean, that seems dreary, but it doesn't have to be dreary. I just think it's the truth, you know? There are dark passages, and sometimes if you can find the light in them, and I mean the metaphoric light, just the knowledge that you gain from allowing yourself to try and navigate that world, that in a way, it's somewhat healthy. Well, it is for me. Maybe not everybody, but we can't live in the light all the time. I don't believe that that's possible. Love black. Love black. It had always been what I wanted to do. Art was sort of central to the way I thought. The first things I can remember doing were taking mud and making little sculptures out of mud. And then, as it happened, I lived next to my first cousin, and she loved to do art, so we'd do drawings endlessly together. I think because I've always been interested in a kind of an aerial way of seeing things. My grandmother lived here, my cousin lived here, and we lived up here on a hill. And I just remember the terrain. There was a pond, and there was a road that went through to my grandmother's house, and there was a path down the hill, and I saw it as a map, sort of like the 100-acre wood. It was all where the forest was. It was all in my mind as a kind of a map that I followed. So I think that was the first time when I think back of it that I was aware of that kind of a way of seeing things. I went to Vassar, and I went there because I had heard they had very good art department, and it was true. They had a very excellent history of art department. But the studio art department was practically non-existent. So I decided to take landscape architecture, which required a lot of hideous courses like mechanical drawing. And then, you know, you have to do these very exact drawings to scale, which is a pain, but that was part of the course that we had to do. But what I really wanted to do was to do everything. I wanted to know photography, I wanted to know printmaking, I wanted to know sculpture. I took everything I could. At one time, one of my kids broke their leg, and I didn't get the homework assignment in time, and I went to him and I said, oh, my youngest son broke his leg, and he said, never come to me and tell me about what's going on at home. I don't want to know. You either get the work done or you don't, because that's the way it's going to be for you. And it was probably the best lesson that I ever learned in any school or college or anywhere. You know, I thought, okay, this is it. If I want to do this, this is the way it's going to be. And I worked very hard. Reading has been hugely influential in my work. I can't remember when I picked up W.G. Sable's book, The Rings of Saturn, but I started reading that book and I thought, if I could paint the way this man writes, I would have just exactly what I want to do. I saw it kind of from an aerial perspective. I could kind of see the trip and map the trip that was along the eastern coast of England and all the side trips that he took. The way he was able to connect these ideas and then go on to other thoughts and then fold in writers and history, and you know, he talks about Borges and he talks about Descartes. And then he's talking about the Japanese emperor and his narrow gauge railway and the silkworm industry, and all of a sudden you're miles from where he is walking, and you don't even realize that it's like a magic carpet. All of a sudden you're transported to these ideas that he presents with you. And I thought, You know, if you are interested in disparate things, the way I'm interested in ant colonies, and I'm interested in swarm intelligence, and I'm interested in all kinds of animal behavior and the universe and all the images from the Webb telescope, and it's just all this plethora. So I thought, if I could pluck some of those and just have them in a continuum along my linear walk, that it would be kind of the same idea, and I'd like to see how that turns out. So I got intrigued with doing this, and once I got into it, it was pretty addictive, and I don't know how many of these drawings I've actually done, but I must have 100 now.
So Speedwell's mission is to support the work of mid to late career women artists who we feel are not getting the attention that they deserve, both nationally and regionally. In 2018, we had a show for Woolly called Flight that included paintings and then also a hanging glass installation in the front of the gallery. So we decided, I would say probably 2 years ago, that we started thinking about how can we create a retrospective for Woolly. And we started thinking about some of the venues. We couldn't do it all in Speedwell, obviously. It's a nice, generous space, but it's not big enough to do a retrospective. So we thought, well, we're just gonna have to find other venues to kind of tag team with us. And we thought, wouldn't that be so exciting that basically you'd kind of map yourself around Maine and you travel to different venues that would then represent different periods in Woolly's career.
What happens here is that nature is an unavoidable presence. When you're in the city, you can say, oh, fine. But when you're here, the natural environment is unavoidable. It is a strong, strong voice that I feel comes into her work when she's here. She once said to me kind of recently, she said, oh, sometimes I'd like to just relax and draw what's in front of me. And this is actually the place where that kind of observation, that kind of being present with the moss and the lichens and the rocks and the tide coming and going and the rains and all of that's way more present for people. And I had decided pretty much early on that I would use this building. This is a place where people come and really sit with work. And Woolly's work requires attention. It's beautiful. You can just walk by and say, yes, that's beautiful. Or you can really spend time with it. And the stories emerge as you spend time with it. This is very particularly focused on prints and drawings, and the great thing for me was going to her studio in Portland and getting free rein to go through her flat files. Much of the work that I chose for this show, it's a real variety. It goes back as far as 1971. There are the Bat series, the Beatles. There are a couple of prints that I found and that Woolly said, gee, I'm not sure I remember that one.
In collaborating with Speedwell and of course with Alison, my concept was that this exhibition present her ongoing bodies of work. So the works that are on view span about 2018 to 2023. Some oil paintings behind me are still wet. It is that new. Which is really lovely. So we can really show where Alison's work is right now. We both zeroed in on these two bodies of work and the wonderful relationship they have with each other. The work's on paper reflecting aerial views of the earth, showing natural patterns of water and land as it's been built up over millennia, coupled with the human imprint that has come onto the landscape. coupled with oil paintings on canvas that are looking up at celestial bodies and really reflect her fascination with astronomy and new discoveries as we've all been encountering them over the past few decades. So this sense of looking up and looking down is a great way of not just only thinking about our place in the world and our impact on this world, but also really how precious what we have is and how amazing the discoveries and infinite the discoveries are around us.
I'm in a studio right now that she basically provides to us. It's just a gift. When I pull up in the morning, I love to see whose cars are here. And I like to know who's here is working. And I see my friends and I feel good that I leave my world there and I come into my private art world here and my friends are working. When I leave you right now, I know Woolie's here. I'm going to go up because I saw her car. I'm going to go see how she's doing.
You're going to have to wait until I find a picture of a comet, because I don't really know what a comet looks like. So I have to consult my book, my universe book.
I think this humility that I find in her, it's an inward draw to this really rich inner life that is through literature, through travel, through extensive reading of culture, of biology, sociology, anthropology. I mean, I remember Sean Foley once came to the MFA at Mecca and talked about how artists read. And it was so perfect because he said, well, we don't read like PhD scholars. We graze. We have books, and I think if you were in Woolie's house or in her studio, there are these tons of books everywhere, and you kind of graze, and I kind of do the same thing, and that you might not necessarily read something from cover to cover, but something leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next, and I think that also then translates into the work that she does.
Somewhere else I saw it. I'll have to make up a comment.
For a lot of artists, they have their breakthrough moment when they're 20-something years old, and they burn brightly and they burn quickly, and then they sometimes disappear. Sometimes they start early and continue throughout their career. In fact, it's often been said that a good career move is a short life for some artists. In Woolie's case, a long life is a really great career move. Where she really gains ground is probably when she's in her late 50s, early 60s, when she's doing these works. And that's not atypical for artists who have families and have a tremendous amount of responsibilities. This exhibition here at the Speedwell Gallery seems, to my perspective, to represent sort of a breakthrough period for her. It is a survey, in effect, of 50 years. But the key paintings in the galleries are from the late 1980s and the early 1990s. Because in these works, what you see, which I think characterize her breakthrough moment, is that sense of space, which she has dealt with so brilliantly in works like the one right here beside me. This sense of working on a very shallow surface in one sense, but on the other hand, creating an incredible indeterminate space where you can't tell whether you're looking up or looking down, whether you're looking at the insides of a human body, whether you're looking at a landscape. You see suggestions of up here in the corner of what might be architecture. Then you have things that could be chains or it could be entrails. Is this some part of an earthwork? And what's also characteristic of Woolie's work is these very kind of dark earth tones, things that suggest space, darkness. But what I find always intriguing is there's always actually, if you get up close to these paintings, you see lots of bits of color in them. So there's like all these little glimmers in it. It's like looking at stars in a night sky, which actually come out in the much more recent work.
Some of the pieces in Speedwell are early drawings. Some of them are from the late 50s. You know, she was always drawing. You know, she was always drawing cartoons for family, she said. You know, her hand was always in it.
She would actually do some drawings, some watercolors and some drawings of the family that we all remember really fondly. Caricatures, really, of people, the way she drew people. But I was aware of the way she drew my whole life, because every time she wrote something down, it just had this kind of beauty to it, like this cursive way of writing, you know, her own calligraphy, if you will. That's Wooley's handwriting. It's unmistakable, and she still writes that way to this day. But you know, if I had to get directions, or you know, like if I said, how do you get to this place? And I just figured most people would, right, you could take a left here, you know. But she would kind of draw a map, and she'd like draw it. It's like, oh, then you go past here, and that's the schoolhouse, and you draw a little schoolhouse, and then you go down this road, and there's the cemetery, and she'd draw a little thing. I mean, you know, it was all visual. And so I'd be looking at these directions, but it was really a drawing of, like, you know, some small town. Like.
That looks kind of stupid, doesn't it? I think I'll forget a comment. I think I can really get a comment in there.
I think people forget that she is turning 90. Like, we have been watching her work to prepare for this show. It is her singular focus. Like, she is up and down ladders, she is moving paintings. You go to her studio and you're like, no, Woolley, let me help you with that. And the painting's already been moved halfway across the room.
Right now her hip hurts a lot. She's gonna go home. Well, maybe I'll just paint a little more. And 2 hours later, she's still there painting, up and down on these ladders, and everybody's all upset about it. Oh my God, she's gonna fall. And she has fallen, but she's okay. She comes in here and gets ice and puts it on her head and goes back to paint.
Let's not just see Wooley as the nicest person in the world forever, okay? I mean, nobody's one-dimensional. I want to approach the fierceness of her work. If you really take a good look at that work, that is fierce. And you've got to get out of the way of it. You can't come at it with a prejudice. She is not allowing that. It is absolutely singular. She works that way, it's driven, and I respect that part of her, because inside of all of us are many characters, and she shows a side of you that has some elbows in that painting and that work. It's deep, it's ponderous, and it's serious. Whatever she gives us as a person, she takes away when she asks us to look at her work. She says, look at me, I'm a serious artist, and this is life, and this is real. And this is what I'm facing, confronting, and dealing. My dilemma is exposed to you. So you're not going to walk in there and walk away with, I don't know, puppy dogs and stuff like that. Don't go there expecting that from her. That's her duality, is her power to me.
Okay, goodbye, Comet. It was an idea. Which didn't work. Sometimes it's exhilarating to use color, and lots of times I find it off-putting. So I think that black is the place that maybe not retreat to. I think that's not a very good word, but I am drawn to. When I start using it, I'm quite happy. It's kind of a commitment, a definition. It stands for a world that I think is really interesting, and that really is the world of dissent and knowledge through dissent. And I guess the thing is that that's not something that you always share with the world. I mean, some things you have to absorb. I think we all have our little tunnels that we can go to. Maybe they're not tunnels. Maybe people go up in a balloon, in a hot air balloon. Whatever people do, I think you need to just exit from the everyday patterns of our life and Just take an excursion to a place that you're drawn to.
Yummy. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Hi, Gus.